Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, take the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story. Mets rise, reclaiming the glory. 7 the city, blue and orange army swarm. Summer vibe electric, love in every form. From Biggie's blocks to Flushing's heartbeat. Our anthem loud, no retreat. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. The apple pops in the outfield, city of dreams. Rob's voice over static, Mets on every stream. White lines mapped out the future, vividly. From Shade to City, the journey's never gimmicky.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel and on X. And Mets fans, the Mets will not lose today. I can guarantee that with everything I say today because they don't play today. So they cannot lose today, Mets fans. So smile about that a little bit. But two teams that we really have to have a conversation about is the Philadelphia Phillies and the Cincinnati Reds, as the Mets are now 5.5 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies in the NL East and just a game and a half up on the Cincinnati Reds for that third wild card. But a little bit of a caveat to this is that the Phillies and the Reds play each other. So the question that has been around social media, that has been on Sports Talk Radio, who do you root for if you're the fan of the New York Mets? Honestly, don't care. Because it doesn't matter if the Mets don't take care of their own business. But let's say the Mets find a way to get back on track just a little bit against the Braves when they return home. Right? Do you root for the Reds or do you root for the Phillies? Right? You're 5.5 out of the division, a game and a half up on the Reds. Now, there's a lot of people that have been saying you should be rooting for the Phillies. And look, it's not an easy decision by whatever decision you decide to make, and your decision is your own. But I see it this way. I am rooting for the Philadelphia Phillies. And I'm going to tell you why, right? Don't come after me. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you a really good reason. The Mets still got 7 games against the Philadelphia Phillies. 7 games. They're right now leading the season series 4-2. Remember, we swept them the first time. They took 2 out of 3, so we're up 4-2. And we got 7 games with them still. And I think that's important. Now, we do got 3 more against the Reds. But the 7 games against Philly is a head-to-head matchup that is ultimately important, right? It feels like it's 2 games every time you win. Right? You gain a full game if you beat that team. Right? You don't have to worry about them losing to somebody else. You have control over that. So having 7 games against the Phillies still, and obviously it's at the end of near the end of the month in this month that we play the Phillies. So I'm looking at it this way. We got 7 games against them. I don't like relying on other teams to beat them. Obviously, the Mets have to take care of their own business when they're not playing Philadelphia. But while we have to worry about the Phillies losing to another team and our team winning games against other teams, I'd rather just worry about being within striking distance with those 7 games, or at least the next series that we face them, being within that amount of game striking distance. And again, we see what a week does. You know, when the Phillies are, 7-3 in their last 10, and the Mets are 1-9 in their last 10, and obviously 11 out of 12 as they lost, a week can mean a lot. And not saying that the Mets are going to turn this around in their homestand coming up, and the Phillies are going to, struggle a little bit. But again, the Phillies haven't been overly impressive as well. And the Mets have been so bad that it looks like the Phillies are doing so much better than the Mets. Like, if you really think about it, over the last 2 weeks, over the last 13 to 14 games, the Phillies should have like an 8-game lead. But they don't. And that is something that I think you can put your hat in a little bit and be a little bit of that positive energy attitude when it comes to we could be really out of the division, but not really. And that is what I'm going with when it comes to the division, right? I don't think we're going to have the best record. There's a pretty good chance we're not going to have the second best record. So in all likelihood, we're playing a wild card game, a wild card series. My hope is to win that division, or be the first wild card, and it's kind of around the same amount of games, right? We're 4.5 behind the Cubs for the first wild card and 5.5 behind the Phillies. So it's basically the same, closely the same number. You want to get division or the number one wild card. And I say that because you want at least the home field advantage in the wild card series. That I think is important. Get the home field advantage, right? As bad as the Mets have been this year, or at least lately, they're still a pretty good home team. And I know they haven't shown that as of late, right? They're going through it right now. They're definitely going through it right now. But they're still 17 games over 500. Now, it was over 20 games over 500 not too long ago, but they're still very much a good team at home. Now, again, look at their record. They're 9 games under on the road. That's a problem. And I don't trust this team, at least the rotation, to pitch on the road. I think with the energy of the fans behind them at home, I think it would help. Now, again, I don't trust these guys. But at least I've seen the Mets get up while they're at home. Now, they need to get up during this homestand because there ain't no playing games. We got 44 games left to go. There's got to be urgency. And that is where we are when it comes to the Mets in the NL East, in the wild card, and what needs to happen over this homestand. This homestand is what? 7-game homestand, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7-game homestand. Let me just double check on that. I think that's what it is, but I could be wrong. 6-game homestand. And again, we're playing one good team over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 games. Seattle. Over the next 12 games, we're playing one team that's over 500. And that is playing pretty well in the Seattle Mariners. And that's at home. Other than that, we'll play Atlanta at home for 3. Washington away for 3. And Atlanta away for 3. Now, Atlanta's have been the house of horrors, right? Atlanta always finds a way to get up for the Mets, regardless if they're playing good or bad. And in between all that is the Seattle Mariners on the weekend series at home. So in the next 9 games out of the next 12, you're playing teams that are not very good. The Braves aren't very good. Now, again, the Mets have problems with the Braves, but it would be nice as these 9 to 12 games have a really good stretch. Because after that, you got Philly for 3. You got Miami for 4 at home. These are all home games. But the Miami Marlins have been playing better. The Phillies are, again, still looking for revenge. And if you really, again, we're going into that 3-game series against Philly, up 4-2 on the season series. That is going to be huge because this series could actually determine who wins the season series, or at least the Mets could win the series. You take 2 out of 3, it's 6-3, and now you got 4 more games to go. All you have to do is win. You just have to split in the remaining 4 games against them, and then all you got to do is tie the Phillies for the division. And you win the tiebreaker. That is a huge deal. So, I know people are talking about the Mets got to get back on track. The Mets got to do this. The Mets got to, the pitching this, the lineup that, the bullpen this, the coach, the manager, the GM, president of baseball ops, doesn't matter. This is the reality that they put themselves in. They put themselves back into this wild card conversation where there's a chance that the Mets could not make the playoffs. They put themselves in this situation. Go back 2 weeks ago. They were firmly in that number one wild card spot. They were around 4.5 to 5 games ahead in that first wild card. They were sitting pretty. They completely lost all prettiness in a relaxing, we're going to make the playoffs situation. Now it's desperate times, call for desperate measures. You got to have a little sense of urgency here. Somebody's got to do something. And last night, David Stearns, after getting swept by the Brewers, decided, and I did the video yesterday, and people were like, hey, you spelled prospects wrong. No, I didn't. This was very much planned. I put prop specs. Why? Prop specs. And the reason why I did that was, and I pinned it in the comment section in that video. Reason why I said that is because this is the perfect propaganda. This is like a communist country that only puts out good propaganda, even though everything around them is burning. Right? It's propaganda for David Stearns, right? Shit's just completely falling apart for this team. The offense is bad. The rotation is bad. The bullpen is overused. The manager is getting questioned at every decision. And all eyes are turning on David Stearns. Why didn't you get a starting pitcher at the deadline? Why didn't you get a better bat in center field? Why did you spend all these prospects to bring in all these 3 relievers and actually do something better? So what does he do? He makes a massive promotion that never happens during the season. These type of promotions where you promote 4 guys in your system from AA to AAA doesn't happen during the season, guys. This is very rare. This doesn't happen. This is an off-season type of situation where they make that decision with multiple guys. This is David Stearns' propaganda to get fans off his ass. And I said that during the deadline when he couldn't wait to get on SNY and on the media, through the media, half hour after the deadline, because he had to spill positivity and his propaganda and make you drink the Kool-Aid about the top pitching prospects. Couldn't wait to bring those guys up. Then he brought up Paul Blackburn just for the hell of it. Like, that is what he did. And this is what he did once again. Now, I'm on board with that, right? I think there needs to be a roster shakeup. And that is the topic of conversation is this prospect promotion of Ryan Clifford, Carson Benj, Jonah Tong, and Jet Williams to AAA a sign of a big roster shakeup to come, right? I don't think Mauricio's safe. I don't think Beatty's safe. And I don't even think Vientos is safe, by the way. And you know what? I wonder if there's conversations when it comes to the rotation, if somebody's going to be out the door. And that goes for a guy like Frankie Montas, either in the bullpen as like a long man every now and then, or they're going to eat that money for Frankie Montas. I don't know if they'll do that, but you don't make these type of promotions with guys all killing it in AA. Jet Williams, Carson Benj, Ryan Clifford, those guys are killing it in AA. Ryan Clifford lead AA in home runs. And you got Jonah Tong, who's been laying up AA and is now in AAA, joining Sproat and McLean, who might not be there that much longer. So what is going on? Is there a big roster shakeup that is coming? And again, Brandon Sproat, no McLean. McLean just pitched last night. They're not coming up until 4 to 5 days from now, when you can safely have that extra year of control for your prospects. So, you look at the issues with this team, right? Ryan Clifford is a first baseman / corner outfielder. Carson Benj is a center fielder, right? You got Mullins. I don't think Carson Benj is going to come up here. I don't even think Jet Williams is going to come up here. It's a possibility, but we'll see. Because I do think somebody maybe even two, but most likely one of those guys in Beatty, Mauricio, or Vientos, and most likely Mauricio is going to get sent down because I think Mauricio still needs to be developed. And this is what I talk about when you try to win and also you try to develop at the major league level, you fall into this situation that you're currently in, right? You still don't have a third baseman. You got three guys that consistently don't play because you got them on the roster and you can't sit these guys for a week and expect them to be good when you give them an opportunity to start. It just doesn't work. So that's why one of these guys have to go. It makes Mendoza's decisions a little bit more easier. You want Mendoza to have easier decisions to make, not more decisions to make. That's how you fall into trouble. That's why when you had all four of these guys up on the roster, Mendoza hands were tied. Like, how are you supposed to play every single one of these guys on an everyday basis? None of them are hitting, and nobody. The lineup has been bad. So what are you supposed to do? You can't sit and what in the grand spectrum of it, what happened? Acuna never got starts and playing time. He was a pinch runner and defensive replacement. That is not a way to develop your prospect, regardless if he's not going to be here long term or not. You have him right now. Develop him where he puts up good numbers in the minors, where there might be one team out there that says, wow, I didn't realize he was going to be that good. Make him fall for that nonsense. But that is the problem. Like, you're hurting everybody's value and you're hurting the major league team, which doesn't help you in either aspect of this entire team construction that David Stearns has put together here. Jose, let's hope the Mets will bounce back, right? Again, you're not as bad as your worst stretch, and you're not as good as your best stretch. So, are they in between? I think so. I think they're still a pretty good team, right? I think they are. I do. Like, we're not 20 games under 500. We're not even a 500 team. I mean, we're getting there, but we're not a 500 team. We're 8 games over 500. Right? It's not pretty, but it could be a lot worse. Right? Thank God for that early great start. But this is basically a flip from last year. This year they had a really good 2 months, and they've struggled in June, July, and the beginning of August. Last year, the exact opposite. They were terrible in the first 2 months, and from June on, they were the best team in baseball. So, again, I ask you, a lot of people like what the Mets did last year, but again, there was no expectation. So it's hard to judge last year and compare it to this year because it's totally different. There's very high expectations. And I truly believe that I don't necessarily think this team can handle those expectations. Now, that's a detriment to the main core of this team that has been completely choking and failing since they've been on this team. And it starts with Brandon Nimmo. It starts with Pete Alonso. And it starts with Jeff McNeil. And you know what? Lindor has been here since 2021. So he's part of it now. Soto is the newbie. He's the guy that just got here. So just like we did with Francisco Lindor, we're doing the Juan Soto. Just like we did with many other guys, Mike Piazza, when he first got here, who wasn't very good when he first got here. Right? He can't handle New York, right? He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. He's a terrible catcher. He's gay. Like, they come up with all these nonsense storylines just to save face and just that's what they did with Mike Piazza. Poor guy. The guy had to come out and through the media and say that he's not. Like, come on. Like, can we talk about baseball here? So this is what I continue to talk about as for years. I've talked about, is this core good enough? Is this core worth keeping together? Because you can't fall apart this year. And let's say the Mets do make the playoffs. Let's say they hang on by the skin of their teeth, but they lose in a wild card round. A disaster, right? That is very bad. That is not good. You went to the NLCS last year with no expectations, and you get bumped in a wild card. Right? You have to have that conversation. And that's why I said people don't understand that because of the contract situations and how they're set up right now, Brandon Nimmo is not tradable. There's too many people say, hey, you got to trade Brandon Nimmo. Who is going to trade for Brandon Nimmo? Who's going to take on that contract, even if the team that's getting him gives you nothing? Unless you pay his entire contract and give him to a team. You know, that's not happening. He got 5 years left on his deal. $25 million plus every year. No team is paying that many years and giving him to another team just to get something back. And he's probably going to get a prospect back. Because the team that's going to take him on is probably a team that is probably trying to contend. And they're not going to give you major league talent. They're going to give you prospects. So we're going to have a hole in left field now. And yeah, you could say, well, you can throw Ryan Clifford there next year. Yeah, you could do that. But again, you're going into more question marks. There is no guarantee with any of these guys that we're talking about prospect-wise that are going to be any good. Again, save me with the AA and AAA numbers. It doesn't mean anything, right? Haven't we learned our lesson with Mark Vientos? Haven't we learned our lesson with Brett Beatty, Luisano Acuna, Mauricio? On and on we go, right? It's a wait-and-see approach. It's a bad approach to have when you're supposed to be a top contender for a World Series. This development nonsense at the major league level doesn't work unless you're the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Colorado Rockies or the Chicago White Sox, the bottom dwellers. We got to stop with this nonsense. Like, you can't develop these guys at the major league level. You can't say win, 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 contend, and then be okay with too many question marks on our roster, right? When you start the season, like when it comes to guys like Noah McLean, Brandon Sproat, Jonah Tong, who are going to have opportunities to make this rotation, right? There's no guarantee they make this rotation out of spring training next year. Some of them might be here. Some of them might have spots, depending on how they pitch, when and if they do come up. But we also have to understand that there's a strong possibility they're not as good as everybody perceives them to be. We have to have that conversation. Like, too many people just assume. Everybody talks about Carson Bedge. Everybody talks about Ryan Clifford, Jet Williams, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, Noah McLean. Do you know how rare it is for all those guys to turn out what they expect to be? If that's the case, then you know what? Great. Wonderful. But we all know that's not going to happen. We all know out of, 6 guys? If you get 3 of them turning out to be a very solid player, that is a good percentage. But easy, I agree. But that's the problem. Like, there's too many Met fans acting like these guys are going to be his savior, especially Brandon Sproat and Noah McLean. Like, they're not going to be saviors. I'm sorry. Not for this year. Could they help? Sure. But people think they're going to come in here and throw 7 innings of 2-run ball and, throw 97 pitches on a regular basis. Not happening. I'm sorry. These guys are going to pitch well, even if they do pitch well. And let's say they do got those innings restrictions and their pitch count restrictions, and they pitch well 4 and 5 innings. You're still going to use a lot of bullpen during that situation, which, again, the whole point of bringing up somebody who can be better is to avoid using more bullpen. But we're not going to do that. But here we go. Here's the other problem. You're going into the stretch here of 44 games left. Let's say Sproat and McLean pitch pretty good. I'm not saying great, just pretty good. Better than we have. Their innings come up at the end of the year. You're not going to pitch them in the playoffs? Of course you are. So these guys are going to go to the next limit of innings that they weren't expecting to do, the organization and the pitchers, and we're just going to expect them to pitch well, and the innings aren't going to be an issue. When we saw last year, they became an issue for Luis Severino and Sean Manaea. We don't just assume that they're going to just be okay. We're just gonna assume they're gonna be okay. Now they might be, right? I'm not taking that off the board here. But let's be honest, pretty good chance that they could just be gassed. And I don't care about their age. It's about arm fatigue as well. So, like, I don't know how much drastic change and drastic movement of like how much it's going to take us to a next level. Like, I just don't like they can pitch really well for 4 or 5 innings. Hasn't Kodai Senga pitched well for 4 innings? How did that turn out for us for most of the games that he pitched? I don't know that it's going to make a tremendous amount of difference. Like, we have a whole half a game after these guys get taken out. And yeah, I agree, Bayonet. Yeah, we are in a pickle. But who put us in that pickle? David Stearns. He didn't want to pay for legit rotation arms because long-term deals for pitchers is the plague to David Stearns. Which, by the way, a lot of Mets fans agreed with during the offseason. A lot of them did. So the same people who are complaining about the rotation now, this is what you wanted. This is what you wanted. You see, people don't get the result of not doing that in the offseason. And to pile on, he doesn't do anything starting rotation-wise at the deadline. Not even an average pitcher he didn't get. So the same people who bitched and moaned, and there was a lot of Met fans that did that, about, oh, you can't give a long-term deal to this guy or that guy. Yeah, they don't work out. That argument that is so much nonsense, it's hilarious to me, are the same ones that were clamoring how bad this rotation is. Well, you wanted it this way. When you don't sign long-term pitching deals, or at least one, to long-term deals with good money, you're piled into the mediocre pitching market. And what are you going to get? What are you going to get from that? You're going to get mediocre pitching results. And with the hope that one of them turn out to be Sean Manaea like last year, which I'm still waiting. We're going on game 119. Hasn't happened. Yeah, but ACJ, it's not about payroll by an issue, because look at the money we spent in the rotation. It was quantity over quality, right? You gave $20 million to Manaea. You gave $12 million to Holmes. You gave $17 million to Montaz. That's nearly $50 million on 3 pitchers. And if you bottle them all together, they're not very good. You got Clay Holmes that you don't know can be a starter long-term. Frankie Montaz, who's a 4th or 5th starter, and Sean Manaea, who completely changed his mechanics and then got hurt. As I said, the reason why I wouldn't have signed Sean Manaea was because of the mechanical change, that he was going to get hurt. Go back to the offseason shows. I said that before they signed him. Now, I was okay with signing Manaea if it was with someone else better, because you can't use Manaea as, oh, we got our ace back, when he had a half a season, a really good season. It was the middle of June when he started to figure it out. Basically 3.5 months, which is a half a season. And we put him on the pedestal of a top pitcher. And we paid him like one. You couldn't do that. That's a lot of hope. We spent near $50 million over quantity over quality. And again, there was way too many Mets fans that were way too okay with that. Way too okay with that. And now you're living in what you wanted. So don't complain about it. That's my problem. I've complained about the rotation from the offseason. You can't just get Manaea and say, well, there's our ace. That's a stupid way to go about it. And then on top of that, hoping for Manaea to continue to do what he did last year, you get Clay Holmes, who is a career reliever, turning him into a starter, knowing he's going to break down when he got to his 90 innings that he usually pitches in a season. And then you get Frankie Montaz, who's been often hurt and is a 4th to 5th starter at best. So I understand, and Chris brought up a great point, and I brought it up at times too, but he brought up a great point yesterday on the postgame show. If you know you weren't going to use these top pitching prospects until late into the season, if at all, you can't, and that was your plan, you can't have an offseason like you had and a trade deadline like you had by not doing what you needed to do to upgrade the starting pitching, and then have that plan with those top pitching prospects. You can't do all of that and act like it's okay. You have to do one or the other. Now, going into this offseason, when Tong, McLean, and Sproat will all be fully, stretched out in spring training, great, throw them in a rotation. They can probably throw up to 160 innings, maybe 170 if we're lucky. But you didn't start the season with them even on our mind as a possibility to start the season. Because we had Tyler McGill. We had Kodai Senga. We had Holmes. We had Cannon. We had Montas. Well, we didn't have Montas, but we had those guys. So that's the problem. The cheap starters, people act like, oh, why spend on starting pitching when you can, give short-term deals? But who's taking short-term deals? The mediocre pitching, not the good pitchers. The pitchers that are above average or better aren't taking 3-year deals. They're taking 5+. And if that's too uncomfortable for you, then you're going to find yourself in a lot of problems. You better hope one of these top pitching prospects turn into DeGrom or close to it, because you're very much in trouble if they're not. Because if they're average, you got a lot of number 3s and a lot of number 4s in this rotation again, and you're back to square one. And I got to check the starting pitching market for top pitchers. I think Framber Valdez is one of those guys. He's a guy that's 34 years old. That ain't happening. I doubt he's going to take a 3-year deal for high money, and we know Stearns ain't doing that probably. So what are we doing? What are we doing here? Yeah, Nathan Eovaldi would have been a nice choice. Right? I don't know how many years he got. He probably got 2-3 years, I think it was, right? And he has an opt-out maybe. But yeah, we could have done that. There was options out there. People were like, oh, you wanted Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns was an innings machine. He had a rubber arm. The guy threw 170 innings every year. So nobody's predicting that he can get hurt. You can't predict that. Ranger Suarez, again, Ranger Suarez is fine, but I don't think he's going to be a difference maker. He might help this rotation. Yeah, Ace AG. How about Generation K 2.0? Let's not even talk about 90s Generation K. What about 2015 Generation K 2.0? The Syndergaards, the Matts, the DeGroms, the Wheelers, even though Wheeler was hurt. Harvey. Right? How did that last? That lasted 3 years, and they never pitched at the same time in the rotation because somebody was always injured. We can't fall into this. And again, I'm okay with the pitching prospects. I am okay with that. But stop making them out to be like they're all going to be saviors here. You can't run a team like that. It's dangerous. Because if they don't work out, and the offseason's over, and you made the decisions of not giving any really good pitchers deals, and you're going back to reclamation projects and mediocre pitchers on short-term deals, you're in for the same problems again. So we're fighting the same battle. Yeah, easy. I understand it with his velocity, but that was one of his best years last year. He was pitching more like contact, right? Which helped him go deeper into games, which his innings were high. His velocity, again, everybody falls in love with the velocity, and they're obsessed with the velocity, right? If you go back to what he was talking about, and he had an interview because people were talking about that when he was with the Orioles. He basically said, "Yeah, I am not trying to strike out everybody. My pitch count goes up." Like, he changed his way of doing what he needed to do. So he pitched more of the contact. And he became a better pitcher because of that. You can't predict that this guy's going to get hurt. Can anybody say that if I were to say bet $1,000 that Corbin Burns would get hurt over Max Fried, who has been injured the last 2 years prior to signing that deal with the Yankees? I guarantee you 90+% would have said Max Fried would get hurt, not Corbin Burns. So you can't predict that. The same thing with these pitching prospects. Why do we just assume that their arms are going to stay on and something's not going to happen? Knock on wood, I don't want to see these guys get hurt or anybody get hurt for that matter. But we're acting like these guys are immune to getting hurt. But it's okay. You're not paying them. You see the stupidity behind that? David Stearns tells you short-term deals are what to do with starting pitching. But he acts like these guys don't get hurt. And he's like, well, it's still a low risk with a possibility of high reward. No, it's not. It's mediocre risk when it comes to the reward. And maybe they'd be slightly above average. But you act like they don't get hurt. You act like mediocre pitchers and short-term deals don't get hurt. In the grand scheme of things, if the guy gets hurt in that season, like this year, it affects you this year. But as I say all the time, when the Dodgers get their 9 aces back, those guys will pitch like an ace or a top starter. Like Blake Snell. When Yamamoto was down, he's going to come back and pitch like a top starter. Same thing for Tyler Glasnow. That's what I talk about. People be like, oh, well, these guys get hurt. Yeah, but when they come back, they pitch like top pitchers. Who is excited about Sean Manaea? Too many people. I was not. I don't trust him. I don't. We tried to build up his arm over the last 2 games, and we couldn't even do it. Because one, we're falling apart at the seams. We're choking. We're on a huge losing streak during this stretch. And he can't pitch later into games where we need him to, both times, his last 2 starts, and to build up his pitch count. So now we have to wait another start. Sorry, doesn't excite me. Can Kodai Senga look like a pitcher? Please? Like David Peterson's going in this series. Wonderful. He's facing Carrasco. Can we win this game? In game 2, we got Strider against Holmes. Now, Strider hasn't been great this year. Holmes had a decent start his last time out, but nothing special. They took him out at 75 pitches. He was pitching well, but they're deadly afraid for him to go the 3rd time through the order and get him over 85 pitches. So that's out of the question, him going past 5 innings. So we already know we're using 4 or 5 bullpen arms, and that's if he pitches well, because there's no guarantee of that either. And then you got Mr. Kodai Senga, Mr. 4 innings. Mr. Soft tissue injury waiting to happen. Like, let me ask you something, guys. We have Senga since 2023. Who's the better pitcher, Senga or Yamamoto? Now, I'm not saying the Mets could have got Yamamoto. He went to the Dodgers, right? He had a choice. But Yamamoto pitched really well in the playoffs. Did you not see what he did against us? He pitched really well in the playoffs, pitched really well in the World Series. I don't expect that from Kodai Senga. I don't expect that from most of our pitchers. Because when you talk about injuries, be consistent and realize it happens to all the pitchers, regardless of salary. Just because it looks good on the books, they're still injured and not helping the team. But again, let me ask you something, guys. Glasnow and Manaea were basically out around the same time, right? Glasnow came back a little earlier. Who are you more confident is going to pitch better when they return? Let's just do lefty. Blake Snell, who just came back. Who do you expect to pitch better, Manaea or Snell? You see his first outing? 10 strikeouts. What was it? 2 runs, He only pitched 5 innings, but again, it's not like Sean Manaea is going 7 here. So the expectation when these guys come back has different levels here. When Glasnow comes back, I expect him to be a top pitcher. When Yamamoto comes back, when he came back, I expect him to be a top pitcher. Same thing goes for Blake Snell. That's the problem. So I don't want to hear about injuries and, well, it looks good on the books because that's all David Stearns cares about. But you know what? When Corbin Burns comes back, and again, he's not helping you this year, right? Done. But you save face a little bit if you got Corbin Burns and have Sean Manaea. Because if one of them go down, and again, both of them went down, but Sean Manaea was coming back eventually. You have that other option. We still don't know if Sean Manaea is going to be healthy enough. Do we even know he's healthy? We don't know. I mean, he's going out there every 5th day. No, it's not about Blake Snell's fan club. It's about he's a better pitcher. That's the problem. Blake Snell's a 5-inning pitcher. I know that. But you know who also knows that? The Dodgers. That's why you go out and get more pitching. Let me ask everybody something, guys. How do you feel about either Blake Snell or Sean Manaea in the playoffs? Who are you more confident in that's going to pitch well? Blake Snell. It's not about being a part of the fan club, right? I'm not the biggest fan of Blake Snell. But I'd be damned and be lying to you if I wouldn't rather have him in this rotation over Sean Manaea. Because why do we just assume that Sean Manaea is going to have a similar year that like last year or even close to that? He already lost 3 months, 2.5. I don't expect it at all. I'm sorry. I just don't. And you know what? I'm not hoping for this. I want Sean Manaea to build up. I hope the next time out he throws 6 innings, 95 pitches, and he builds his arm back up and let's go. And I hope that happens. But we're assuming it's going to. And I hope so. Yeah, Dolo, Snell's the 3rd or 4th starter on the Dodgers. He is number 1 on the Mets. Make no mistake about that. I'm sorry. Don't play this stupid game. Blake Snell is better than everybody in this rotation. Now we're only going on 1 year of Sean Manaea or 3.5 months of Sean Manaea last year. All of a sudden, Sean Manaea is better than Blake Snell. Look, everything encapsulates a good starting pitcher, a top starter, right? Pitching well, and Blake Snell pitches a lot more quality than Kodai Senga or even Sean Manaea overall, right? Snell is badass in the playoffs. Sean Manaea has a little bit of experience in the postseason, not much. Senga has none, so please help me with that, right? Snell can't help that Cash took him out of the game in a World Series game when he was pitching outstanding. Not his fault. The fact of the matter is, don't tell me, oh, well, Snell's a 3rd or 4th starter. Yeah, on the Dodgers. Probably on most teams, not the Mets. He's a 3rd starter on the Phillies. He's a 3rd starter on the Cubs. He's a 3rd starter on the Yankees. He's a 3rd starter on the Padres. He's not a 3rd starter on the Mets. He's the number 1 on the Mets. Yeah, I know, Dolo. Exactly. Manaea, I don't think Manaea got exposed, and I'm not trying to be unfair to Manaea. I'm trying to be fair here. I don't think Manaea got exposed. I think Manaea was just gassed. I don't think he had anything left in the tank, unfortunately. No, easy. It's not about Snake being great. Again, I never said that. We're having a conversation. Who would you rather have pitching for you in game 1 of a series, Manaea or Snell? That shouldn't be a conversation. That shouldn't be an argument. If you're going to say Manaea, you're just having a little favoritism because you remember last year and he's wearing a Mets uniform. Yeah, Dolo, for sure. But again, you could see him when Manaea was pitching in that game that His arm was a little bit higher. Every ball was up in the strike zone, which is a sign of fatigue. It was a sign of fatigue. Look at that game. He walked a ton, and every pitch was up. And with Minaya, he likes to work down with his sweeper, and he likes to use his fastball up in his zone. Everything was up, even his breaking stuff. That's the thing. He was gassed. And again, we can have a lot to do with, we could say that, oh, Minaya just didn't have it anymore. The Dodgers, planned better. Sure. But when your pitchers are 90% up in the strike zone during that game, it was fatigue. Yeah, but easy. Again, it's not about talking about Dave Snell when it comes to, oh, do I think he's great? No. But we're having a conversation. Would you rather have Minaya or Snell? You're an idiot if you say Minaya. Snell has been proven. Every year, he's been a top pitcher. Yes, he gets hurt. He does. I agree with that. But when he's on the mound, and then when he always comes back. The guy gets hurt for a month and a half, but the guy always comes back and pitches really well. Now, no pitcher's immune to having bad starts. But let's not make Minaya like we got a gem in here. You're paying him $20 million to, one, get hurt, which, I guess that don't matter because it's only $20 million. But if it was, Max Fried or Corbin Burns at $26, $27, $28 million, it would have been the end of the world. Like, we got to stop. Let's see. Easy says when. Yeah. It's not about do I want Snell and making him out to be a great pitcher. He's the end all be all. No. But would I rather have Blake Snell over the majority of our pitchers in this rotation? You're damn right. Like, yes, I would. I'm sorry. Give me a choice of one guy in the rotation on the Dodgers, and I'll take him in a heartbeat because they're always better. Again, easy. You keep on saying when what? Have a conversation, not one words. Mike, he's a number 3 on the Dodgers. He's not a number 3 on the Mets. He'd be a number 1. That's like, if you don't understand that, you are fooling yourselves. Again, drink that David Stearns Kool-Aid because that shit must taste good. You guys are ridiculously stupid with this. You Blake Snell's a number 3. Yeah, on the Dodgers, on most teams, not the New York Mets. Get that crap through your head. When Snell? Okay, 2 words now. I mean, it gets better. I mean, that's a great conversation to have. Blake Snell is better, right? That's a couple of words, right? That's a sentence. Than everybody the Mets have. If you don't believe that, you're a moron. And if you don't like what I say, then too bad, because you're wrong in that situation. Mike, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, how are people arguing with me with this? He's a number 3 on most rotations that are actually good. The Mets rotation isn't good. If you think they're good, again, you're a moron. Again, you need to have your brain developed, brain examined. Seriously. Truman, aces, Framber Valdez, but he's 34 years old. Again, don't even think about that. Don't even waste your time talking about top pitchers on the market because he ain't doing it. Now, do I think there's going to be a conversation about trading for a pitcher like Sandy Alcantara or Edward Cabrera or Mitch Keller or, maybe it's a possibility. I think that offseason trade is more likely than at the trade deadline because David Stearns, pisses in his pants at the trade deadline talking about prospects. But I think in the offseason, it's easier to do it. So there could be a possibility of a trade for a top starter or a top 3 starter. Easy, yeah, I think you are. I'm sorry. Like, you're talking about Blake Snell like he's a piece of crap. You have Shohei Minaya pitch in game 1 or Kodai Senga pitch in game 1. Go ahead, enjoy it. But don't have a conversation and don't argue and don't complain when they don't pitch well. And they ended up being the pumpkin that they have been. Right? 3.5 months of Shohei Minaya being a great pitcher doesn't fool me into thinking he's going to continue that. At 33 years old. I'm sorry, not happening. Valdez going on 31, going on 32. According to David Stearns, he's 55 years old. So it ain't happening. Valdez isn't going to be a May. He's going to get a 5-year deal at least. Because he is a top pitcher. Don't say that word, top pitcher. That's Met fans don't like to hear that. Yes, I agree with you. I talked about Blake Snell as a piece of crap. I don't like a guy who is at the top of your rotation pitching 5 innings. But the conversation isn't about, is he a good pitcher alone? Throwing Blake Snell in this rotation is better than everybody we have. So yes, I take him in a heartbeat because our rotation sucks. You're not understanding. Again, I speak another language. You want me to Google Translate? I'll do it in Spanish, Chinese, Portuguese. That's the problem. If you don't believe that Blake Snell is better than Sean Manaea, then you're a fool. That's what I'm talking about. An individual like Snell, if you're only talking about the individual, I don't like a pitcher like that that's considered the top pitcher. Blake Snell's a top pitcher if you like it or not. And oh, by the way, if you said he's a number 3 at best, great. We still don't have that. That's the problem. Right? I'm not saying Blake Snell, like I would get annoyed with Blake Snell not going to the 6th inning or 7th inning. But again, go back into these games that he pitched. The managers, and it's Roberts, and it was Cash with the Rays. And even with the Padres, they would take him out in the 5th inning. Now, do they not trust him going a 3rd time through the order? Maybe. Right? I really have to dig deep into the numbers. But here's the thing. If I'm a manager and I'm in a playoff game and he's pitching well through 5 innings, wouldn't you put your best guy out there? And again, make no mistake, Blake Snell would be your best guy in this current rotation for the New York Mets. You wouldn't put him out there for 6th inning and say, hey, you're our guy. Right? When Mendoza did that in the NLCS, say, hey, go get him, Tiger. Manaea was like, I'm gassed. I agree, Dolo. I agree with that, right? He was one part of that younger core of guys that were conditioned to go 5 innings in the minors. But again, no excuse. I mean, grow a pair. Go to the 6th inning. And again, in that World Series game, and what was it, the pandemic year, taking him out in the 5th inning, he was lights out. The Dodgers scored runs right after they took him out. So it's fine that individually, yes, it would annoy me at times. It would annoy me more during the season. Like during the regular season, it annoys the hell out of me, right? Again, nobody's immune to the 5-inning nonsense that I like to talk about. I think it's the biggest stupid conversation I have where somebody's like, oh, 5 innings, 3 runs is a quality start. Like I want to smack you in your face. Like, stop it. If I said that, I would want you to slap me in my face. That's not a quality start. It's a quality start because Major League Baseball brainwashed you into believing that. Seriously. It's an average start. Because they want you to believe it's a quality start, and they made you, again, David Stearns is part of this transition of Major League Baseball over the last 5-6 years where small market teams were the only one that used to do this. And now everybody does that. And everybody's okay with that. It's dumb. It's dumb. I'm sorry. That doesn't excite me at all. In the last 53 games, here's a nice little stat for you guys. In the last 53 New York Mets games, the Mets had one pitcher go 6 innings or more. In the last 53 games. That is basically half the games we play, guys. Nearly half. David Peterson was the only one. No other starter has done it. So yes, Blake Snell would be our best pitcher along with David Peterson. How would that duo work for this rotation? Snell and Peterson? Back to back? Sounds a lot better than Peterson Senga, Peterson Mania, Peterson Holmes, and dare I say, Peterson Montaz. Sorry, you lost that conversation. You lost that argument, right? It's not about the individual. It's about what he can do on this team currently. And Blake Snell, 5 innings, 10 strikeouts, was better than anything we got from any of these starters all year, except for David Peterson. I just don't understand. Again, these are the same Mets fans that don't want to give long-term deals to better starting pitchers, and now they live in their bed. Again, remember that comfy pillow that I talked about? Comfy sheet, comfy blanket, right? You're laying in it now. You're laying in the nonsense that you wanted, that David Stern brainwashed you into believing is the right thing to do. Because I know, how many championships has he done? Yeah, but easy. That conversation, that argument can be had, right? But that's a conversation when we're about to sign him. Is that a possibility? Like, we don't know that. Like, you can say that about anybody. You could say that about any pitcher that hasn't pitched in New York, right? Sonny Gray's a great pitcher. Can't pitch in New York. Now, we don't know that, right? We haven't seen that. We don't know that. But I know what he does do. When he comes to New York and pitches against us, he pitches well. Yankees or Mets. So that works. But again, I agree with you with that situation. But you can say that about any pitcher. We have no idea. It's not like a short-term deal pitcher who's mediocre. We can't talk that. We can't say that about. We don't know. But you can say that about any pitcher. That's not an argument that is, unilateral towards one guy. You can say that about everybody. Framber Valdez is going to be the best pitcher on the market. Can't you say that argument about Framber Valdez? Maybe he can't pitch in New York, right? You can say that about any pitcher. That's not a good argument. I will tend to agree, and that conversation should come up against any starting pitcher or any pitcher, especially starting pitcher. I think that conversation should be had. But let's not act like you can use that argument just for Blake Snell, because you can use that for any pitcher. We're going to probably use that against Framber Valdez. Again, the Mets aren't signing Framber Valdez. I'm going to tell you that right now. So get that out of your mind. I agree, Truman. I think you need one legit ace. Give me a top starter. Again, I said this from the beginning, right, guys? I haven't been saying anything that I have not said to you guys in the offseason. I didn't mind Sean Manaea back, but it had to be Sean Manaea plus a starter of his caliber or better. Most likely better. I said that. Go back to all the shows, all the hot stove shows during the offseason. I said that. This is not something that I'm just saying in game 119 of the season because they're not pitching well. This has been a topic of mine from the offseason. I have no problem bringing back Sean Manaea, but we needed at least another top pitcher along with him. And then people brought up Kodai Senga, and I laughed. And David Peterson, wouldn't it have been nice if David Peterson was our solid number 3? And you had Sean Manaea coming back and another top pitcher and throw Kodai Senga in the mix? It would sound a lot better. Like, I have not been saying something that I only been saying for 2 weeks here or over the last 2 months when the pitching was bad. I've been saying this since the offseason. I've stuck to my argument and my topic of conversation about the starters, even when they were pitching the best in baseball in April and May. I stuck to it, didn't I? Right? You guys were here. Didn't I continue to say it's going to be a problem? I've said that. So I'm not skewing away from the conversation and the topic and the argument that I was having since the offseason. I was consistent throughout the season, even when they were the best ERA in baseball. I said the same thing. I never skewed away from it. I stayed on that line. Just because it's a reality to you guys now doesn't mean that I can't still say it. It's a reality now. Welcome to reality, right? We're not in the upside down. Right? We're in reality. We're back to reality here. So this is what the issue is. It's always been a topic of mine. Just because now it's a reality and everybody's waking up and smelling the coffee and seeing it with their own eyes, now it's a big topic of conversation through all social media and all Met fans. Congratulations. I'm glad you joined the party. It's a fun one. The lineup. Oof. Oof, 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 oof. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. Now, they scored 6 runs yesterday. I mean, we can blame the offense all we want. It's not like they didn't tack on runs. They tacked on 5 innings straight. At some point, the pitching's got to hold the lead. And again, I go back to somebody who posted on social media 2 days ago. In the 2-week stretch where the Mets were extremely bad, they had multiple leads in the majority of those games, and they lost every one of them. And people are like, well, it's a 1-run lead. It's a 2-run lead. You don't have 6-run leads and 5-run leads like you did yesterday. It doesn't happen often. You're usually got to hold on to 1 and 2-run leads. You know what that's called? You guys might have heard of it. Baseball. Right? It's okay when the Mets are winning close games in April and May on a crazy rate of games and percentage because they were constantly winning close games, 1-run, 2-run games. They were masters at that in April and May. Now that they're losing the close games, nobody wants to talk about it. When the pitchers constantly give up leads, constantly lose leads, constantly give leads back. It's every game, it seems like the Mets have a 1 or 2-run lead. And the starters and the pitching in general gives the lead right back. Has the offense been good? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But when your lineup gives you leads, and they have been, go back to the last 3 weeks of games. Look at the first 5 innings of games. They're constantly leading. And they continue to blow leads. It is the pitching. Like, I don't know what you want the team to do. The team scored 6 runs yesterday. You lose 7-6. So one idiot's going to say we should have scored 8 runs? Like, you could say that about every game. Again, be consistent with your argument. Don't have a conversation. Don't bring up, oh, well, the Mets were winning close games, 1, 2-run games earlier in the season, and you don't bring up that topic. But now that they're losing those same games, that they seem to be leading most of the time. Now, do they need to be better offensively? Of course they do, right? That's the conversation that we all agree with. But you have leads. At some point, the pitcher's got to keep them. You don't get 5-run leads every game. Like, people are expecting that. It's stupid. We all know baseball, and I hope you do. You got to win those close games. You got to win those 1, 2-run victories. The Mets haven't done that since May. It's been a huge problem. Yes, I agree. So that's the problem. That's the fucked up thing about what's going on right now. No lead is safe for this Mets team. So what is the offense supposed to do? They got to score 12 runs just so they can probably win? So they can win 12-9? Would that make you feel better? It won't make me feel better. It won't make me feel better. Once again, guys, thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live here right here on the channel and on X. We got over 100 in the chat right now, 100 in the stream. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're a new subscriber. Say what's up in the chat. And, we'll be doing games, pregame, postgame next couple of days, and all that fun stuff. So the lineup is a problem. But when the lineup gives you leads, and don't say, well, it's only a 1-run lead, it's only a 2-run lead. Like the Mets are immune to winning those games. Like they're not allowed to. Like the pitcher's like, no. We want to win 6-5, but not 3-2. That's a stupid conversation. That's a stupid argument. How about holding a lead throughout an entire game? What a concept. Like, stop avoiding the shit pitching that we have. And the revamped bullpen is useless because we constantly got to use 4, 5, 6 guys every single night because our rotation can't go deep and they don't pitch well. Every freaking game. Every game. We got Clay Holmes pitching tomorrow. You think he's pitching 6 innings? I got a goddamn pile of shit to sell you. Because he's not. He's going 5 innings, probably out in 80 pitches. So that means at least 4 guys are going to pitch it out of this bullpen. Now we have an off day, so we got a lot of fresh arms. Wonderful. So we get to use all of those fresh arms tomorrow, and that's if Clay Holmes pitches well tomorrow. Because if he gets shellacked in the first few innings, he's coming out earlier, and then we're back to square one all over again. And then we got the savior in David Peterson that we know he's going to pitch 6 innings, even if he's not pitching well. He's going to give you length, but we also need him to pitch well. What a way to live. And then Senga. You guys can talk about him because I'm done talking about him. Yep, Ray Dookieville. I like that one. That's a good one. That's a good one. So, Mets and Braves, the preview, right? The Braves are out of it. The Braves are not making the playoffs, but they find a way to beat the Mets. The Mets are at home. The fan base is going to Citi Field over these 6 games and starting against the Braves, ready to boo. They're going to be on eggshells. This fan base is going to be on eggshells. They are waiting for the shoe to drop. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're not waiting for they're not waiting for something good to happen. They're waiting for something bad to happen. And how can you blame us, right? It's been what we have been dealing with. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Like, I love to say, hey guys, you know what? Let's throw some positivity out there. Because I did that in the Mets Talk Live on Thursday. What day was it? Thursday, yes. Prior to the Brewer series, and threw some positivity at you. After the stream, I got comments saying, I came for the negativity and the rants. Why are you talking positive? So this is a negative Mets Talk Live, and it should be. They don't deserve any positivity because they got to earn our respect back to deserve positivity back. I think we can all agree with that, right? So we got Holmes, Peterson, Senga. Now, on paper, it's like, ooh, right? You know, in fairy tale land, ooh, all that stuff, all that fairy tale nonsense, right? That a lot of Met fans like to live. That think Senga is still an ace, and Holmes is still a good starting pitcher. And, you know, Peterson has to be our ace in, you know, de facto ace because nobody else is stepping up. In that fairy tale land that everybody likes to live in, it's not a good possible matchup, right? Holmes over Strider. Don't give me Holmes as the better pitcher, right? Carrasco over Peterson. Obviously, Peterson got that going, right? That should be a game that the Mets should beat up on Carlos Carrasco. But come on, guys. We know that's not going to happen. We hope it does, but come on, right? Carrasco is going to look like Cy Young against us. And then you got Elder against Senga. Now, you can call that a wash and call it even, but I won't. I'm giving the pitching matchup to the Braves. Now, that doesn't ultimately mean that we're going to lose, but am I going to watch every inning, every pitch? Yes, unfortunately, right? I like misery. I like to torture myself. I like to watch these games so they can break my heart every single time, right? Because that's been the life of a Mets fan. But Holmes, Peterson, Senga, Strider, Carrasco, Elder. The Mets have lost 11 out of 12, 1 out of 9 in their last 10, 5.5 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies for the division, and only a game and a half up on the Cincinnati Reds with 44 games to go. But the Phillies and Reds play each other. So we're gaining a half a game somewhere today. Now, you can have your own opinion on who you're going to root for. Some say the Reds, some say the Phillies. I'll root for the Phillies. But at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter. Just give us a half a game. Because by tomorrow, we could be 2 games up on the third wild card, or we could be just 5 games up in the division. Or behind in the division. So we're gaining a half a game somewhere. Now we're also losing a half a game in the other standing somewhere. So it's kind of a give and take. It's kind of a win-lose situation here. It's like a 50-50. So we'll see what happens. I'll watch the Phillies game, see how it goes, and hope for the best over the next homestand. With the Braves coming to town and the Seattle Mariners coming to town. With that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel and on X. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Get ready for more Mets baseball tomorrow. And I can't guarantee that misery won't happen. Have a good night, guys. Let's go, Mets. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Mets pregame show, guys. Have a good night.
Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets Talk Live, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear.